Welcome back to BlackTideTV, bringing you the best of Call of Duty Black Ops 3 content Monday to Friday. This is the second video of the day. If you missed the first video, I will link it in the card in the top right corner or in the first link in the description. Make sure you go and check that out before you start this video, because this video is actually the second episode of this brand new series that I'm doing. The first video of the day was the first episode where we kind of explained how the series is going to work. One thing I did miss out on how it's going to work is that at the beginning of each of these search and destroy rounds, I am going to aim down sights for 5 seconds so you guys can get a very clear, concise look at each of these reticles, just in case I don't aim down the sights too much when I'm running around and actually getting gameplay. So as you can see, we're working with the Reflex sight today, and these are going to be the first 3 Reflex sight multiplayer reticles. So obviously with First Look camos, we had to do some pretty redundant camos, some camos that everybody has already, things that people just don't really care about, but we want full coverage in these series. So obviously today we're starting out with the default multiplayer reticle for Reflex. So the default Reflex reticle, it's a red dot, cannot get much more simple than this. The default reticle is the pinnacle of practicality when it comes to Reflex sights or sights in general. We're going to be talking through this series about practical sights and aesthetical sights, basically sights that are actually useful for helping you to aim, and sights that are just to look cool and show off. This is just the pinnacle of practicality. You cannot get more practical than this. It's a very small red dot. It's very easy to pick out your targets with this red dot, and it's just a great reticle. I think a lot of people just go straight for the default reticle. Not a lot of people kind of jump around and try out these other weird reticles just because it's just so simple. It doesn't really need to get in your face and be all crazy about it. Doesn't need to be too special at all. I do kind of prefer some other Reflex reticles over this one, like the next one that we're about to see, but the default reticle is very, very nice. It's kind of translucent, so you can see your enemies behind the reticle as well, but I think that's its only major downfall, is that you can't see through it perfectly. Now here is the second, or I guess you could say it's the first multiplayer Reflex reticle, and this is actually called the Eclipse reticle. All you need to do to unlock the Eclipse reticle is get 50 kills while aiming down sights with the Reflex sight in multiplayer, and this sight I think is superior to the regular red dot sight because it's hollow, and the hollowness of this sight is small. There are other sights that we're going to see on there's other reticles, I should say, that we're going to see on other optics that have a hollow point in the middle, but they're not going to be very great. I'm going to actually grade them lower just because the hollow point in some reticles is very large, and you can kind of put 2 guys in there and it might not hit everybody that's in that hollow point, whereas the Eclipse reticle that you're seeing right here is just so perfect. It's so small, like it's hollow, but it's still so small that you can see very clearly around the sight, you can see very clearly through the sight, and it's, again, this is a pinnacle of practicality. I think this is even better than the default reticle just because you have that little tiny bit of space. You can actually see if there's an enemy inside that little circle. May seem kind of crazy, but when you actually, if you're playing on a smaller monitor, or if you're playing and you're really focused, you're really trying to do well, this is going to help you out so much. It's a little bit of a different shade from the default red dot sort of reticle. This one's kind of an orangish color. Obviously, it's an eclipse, I guess. It kind of looks like a solar eclipse maybe, but it's another super practical reticle that it's just awesome. So I think this is actually one of the best Reflex reticles in the game. It's probably right up there with, yeah, I'm looking at the Reflex reticles on my gun right now while I'm doing this commentary, and yes, it's definitely the nicest of the multiplayer reticles. There's nothing else around it. There's nothing fancy about it that's going to get in your way. There's nothing that's going to block out your sight. Of course, it's not a really flashy reticle that you can show off and be like, yeah, look at this awesome reticle that I got, but it is just super, super practical. That it's that small, tiny little dot that you can use to aim at your enemies, but it's hollow enough that you can see your enemies right through it as well. The final reticle that we're going to be seeing today is called the Flare Reticle. It is also multiplayer reticle. I guess you could call it I'm not sure if I should call it the second or the third multiplayer reticle, because technically on every screen of reticles that you go through, like campaign, multiplayer, zombies, black market, the default is actually there as well on every single screen. So I'm going to call the default. The default's just the default. It's not going to be the first of each section of reticles. The first was the Eclipse reticle. You needed 50 kills while aiming down sights with the reflex to get your first multiplayer reticle. The Flare reticle, you need 100 kills while aiming down the sights with the reflex. Obviously, these ones are extremely easy to get. There's nothing really that's a big problem about getting these things unlocked. They're very super easy to unlock. All of the first camo, or all of the first, see, I'm already saying camos. All of the first reticles are very easy to unlock. The Flare camo is no different. 100 kills is pathetic. I mean, I've got over 1,000 kills with almost every gun in this game now. So it's very easy to unlock these camos. And the Flare camo, I'm going to call it practical. It's kind of showy because it has some little extra diagram stuff on there. There's an oval around the actual dot in the middle, and there's kind of like a point underneath that. Kind of looks like a cyclops eye or something if I'm looking at it right now and I'm trying to like picture something that it looks like. That's kind of like the oval part, and the dot in the middle, that's like the corner, that's like the pupil of the eye, and then you have like maybe like he's frowning or something with the little mark on the bottom. It's kind of hard to see in the Dingo gameplay that you have, just because the Dingo, when you're aiming down the sights, you can actually see the little bit of the end of the gun. It's kind of taking up that little frowny section, but it just kind of looks like a cyclops or something to me. It's not very showy, but again, it's very practical. It's a very small dot. The extra lining is very easy to see through. It's probably a really good reticle to use. I still prefer the Eclipse reticle of these three though. So that's it for the very first episode of First Look Reticles. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button. Tell me which of these three is your favorite reticle to use, the default, the Eclipse, or the Flare. Next First Look Reticles video will be the first 3 multiplayer reticles, including the default, of the Recon site. So make sure you're subscribed so you can get that one. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Again, tell me which of these reticles is your favorite in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time.